we have to create the right vibe, the energy, and everybody at the organization has to feel so privileged to be here. It's no other way.
Thanks for listening to the Purely Arsenal podcast. Please follow us on Twitter at PurelyArsenalFP for all the latest Arsenal podcasts.
Welcome to another edition of a Purely Arsenal sit-down podcast. Pre-season is upon us. We're unbeaten so far. And I've got Neil Shah with me. How you doing, Neil?
Hello, mate. I'm all right. Not too bad. Yourself?
Yeah, positive. Always positive. See that positive spin I put on it there?
Yeah, I love it.
Add it to the embroidery down the shirt. James Johnstone with me. How you doing, James?
Yeah, no, sadly it was a 2 points drop, not a point gained out there.
Yeah. Take those points into the US tour. But well, yeah, I mean, we won there last year at Nurnberg, becoming a bit of a season opener for us now, isn't it? Tradition. Second division team, I think they finished 14th in a German league last year, and it was a 1-1 draw. We're not going to do sort of minute by minute play on it or anything like that. But on this pod, we're going to talk a little bit about what sort of takeaways we could get from that pre-season opener. Timber has been announced finally we do take our time with it. I mean, I wasn't stressed or anything, but we definitely take our time with it. But really fantastic announcement by Ajax, to be honest, which we'll go over a little bit. That's a classy club, isn't it? They handle things with class a lot of the time. And I think they take after us, to be honest. But and then obviously Declan Rice is about to be announced any minute. Might get announced while we're talking, but probably definitely announced by the time this one everyone's listening to this one. But it was 1-1 at Nuremberg. It was interesting to see how we set up the lineup, etc. One thing to sort of talk about is Nuremberg. They're 14th. They finished 14th in the second division, but this was their last pre-season game. Their season starts in like a week and a half, end of July. So when it's all about fitness, you'd expect them to be a lot fitter collectively, in a sense, than our collective is in a way, because they're literally just about to get going with their season, and we're just kicking off. We've got a few weeks to go yet, and a few pre-season games to go. But Neil, I know you sort of caught the game a little bit later and sort of clip it to the game. James, I think I was talking to you on the text just before the game started. I'm going for positive takeaways. Any sort of big positive takeaways that you take from that 90 minutes and what you saw leading up to it and things like that?
Yeah, for me, like we mentioned before we started, physically, to me, there wasn't, obviously there's the 2 injuries which are a concern, obviously, always. But there seemed to me to be no real drop-off from a level of, you're going into highly competitive games. So I was quite impressed with that. They all looked like, we've all seen the picture of Sancho that was doing the rounds the other day. And it doesn't look like any of our lads are carrying or there's any real concern there. That they look, sharp and, for want of a better word, ready to go. Positives for me, if I can just round them off quickly. Kivior, I thought especially that first half, with the news, like you said again, about Zinchenko, and there's still the talk of Tierney staying and he's more of a natural left back. I still don't see Arteta playing him. I think the end of last season is the indicator of what he's going to do. He plays the 4 centre-backs across the back 4 now, a la what Pep does at Man City. And I thought Kivior looked really, really good. It's a very small sample size, and we've not really seen him in that 1v1 type scenario because he doesn't really, that they didn't really challenge him that way, really. But the way that he was inverting and playing on the ball, he looked really good. And I think it helped Gabriel as well at times, knowing that Kivior's there with his pace to let him push the line a little bit further and let him come out with the ball a bit as well. And I thought it was really, really interesting. Again, talking on the inversion, if I can, I like the flexibility first half of Nelson and Trossard swapping between the actual left winger and the left eight. They kept swapping that around with each other. I thought that was good. That can confuse teams. I enjoyed that. And then the second half, the youngsters I thought were really, really good. I thought especially was it Miles Skelly? I thought he was amazing when he come on. I thought Walters looked very, very good when he come on. Namwari as well, I thought looked very, very good. He had a few good touches. And second half as well, he brought them all on in well, I know Eddie started, didn't he? But he had Eddie out left, he had Jesus down the middle, and then he had Balogun out right. And I'm not comparing them before anybody starts, going mad on Twitter or in the comments. But it was very to that old school of Barcelona of Messi, Suarez, Neymar, where yes, they're laid out like that, but all three of them can go into each one of that places. Because there was a time where Balogun was drifting from that, there were people online going, oh, you can tell he hates Balogun because he brought him on as a right winger. And I was like, well, just wait, because they're all going to, it's obvious they're all just going to swap at times, just whenever they, and it did end up like that. And I liked that as well. I liked the flexibility of that also. Just sadly, they just, all three of them didn't really convert their chances.
Balogun, Eddie, Jesus, Messi, Suarez. It's the same thing. No, I know what you mean, though, in terms of their interchange. We had like 5 strikers on the pitch in the end. It was like the last 10 minutes in a Wenger game, wasn't it, where he used to just throw strikers on. But yeah, like Arteta said, when the game, so many changes, he knew the game was going to lose a little bit of control, and it was kind of a freak goal that we lost. I know we gave up a couple of chances after that, but it was really one-way traffic for the most of the game. It should have been really a comfortable victory. And you take more from the performance, I think, in a way. Neil, what did you take? As you saw, obviously, the goal, Saka looked fantastic, but any other takeaways? We almost presume Saka's just going to walk back in and look like the best player on a pitch, like he always does. But any other takeaways for you positively?
Yeah, I unfortunately, I got in late from the gym, and then I promised logging on, and bless James, he took some time out of the game to help me get on there. Because I predominantly just saw like the last half hour of the second half. I can really only comment on that, and although I watched the highlights, they were very, very short highlights. So the second goal was great. Nothing new there really is there. We've become accustomed to what he does, and I like the fact that it was a link up with Ben White. It was an assist from him, which was nice because we saw a lot of that, didn't we, last season, where they linked up really well together, apart from near the end, where I think they both were starting to drop off with fatigue, etc. But I thought that was nice. I thought the goal was well taken, and it just oozes confidence. That's what I like about him. He's just so confident in what he does. Amazing player. We're blessed to have him, and I think he's going to get even better, hopefully. But I hope he's used a lot wiser this season, and he has to be, because, of course, we're in the Champions League as well. But then, we're getting the signings in, which should, in theory, help. I also liked what James said. I'll definitely mention a couple of the youngsters. I thought this is looking good. This is looking very, very good. I think, is it Nurnberg he's become a main squad member now? Because I was looking at the teams yesterday, and he's actually become, so there's possibly, I don't think there's any sort of sounds or feel that he's going to go on loan, is there, that I've noticed? So I think it's going to be yeah, so I got a chance. He may feature in the cup games, possibly. I don't know.
Plays like that, he could, yeah.
He looks like a player, doesn't he? I mean, he did that. There's that little footage of him going viral where he's, doing his stuff with his feet and the spin and his wow. He looks very good. But I also liked the other two that James mentioned. The one that possibly Balogun should have done better with. The assists. Oh God, I keep forgetting his name. Skelly, that's it. I keep thinking Shelley for some reason. Skelly, that's it. And then obviously there was the guy at the back as well. Walters, is it Walters? Yeah. And
for you, it is.
It for me, that positive, it really is surrounded not so much on what we saw on the pitch, but it says a lot about our academy. It really is strong. I think we mentioned it last season in the pods, but I think we've certainly up there with academy and the strength of it. And there's hopefully some really good players coming through. So I like that. But unfortunately, as I said, I didn't really catch the good parts of the game. And there are a couple of negatives which I'm sure you'll want to discuss. But overall, it is a pre-season friendly. I know lots of people are losing their rag. I mean, I was saying to you on WhatsApp, I said I wasn't too impressed with what I saw, but then I didn't catch the main part of the game, which was the important part. But it's just a friendly, and like you said, I didn't realise that the other side were already almost match ready for their season proper. So, again, you're measuring two ends of the scale, aren't you? That's our first season, and it's potentially almost probably their last or one of their last. So
yeah, it is their last. I mean, their first game's not for another a couple of weeks or so, but they don't have another pre-season game scheduled, so maybe they have a behind closed doors one like we did. But yeah, I like you, boy. I mean, I kind of back up. Like, I had a couple of others, but I thought Waneri was the standout out of the youngsters. Personally, I thought Lewis Kelly looked good as well, and didn't have as much to do, but I thought he handled himself well defensively. Waneri actually reminded me a lot of the breakout pre-season of Wilshere, to be honest, in that game. I remember going to the Emirates Cup, and I think Wilshere was about 16. He might have been 17, but and Wilshere was playing similar position, like right-sided midfield, and he was this little guy, little stocky guy, very similar to Waneri in terms of build, left-footed, and he was just fearless. He just kept getting the ball, receiving the ball under pressure, fearless. And I was watching this one year. I was like, why is everyone in for this player at the age of 16? Was it just? It's been a lot about him, hasn't there? And I've not really watched enough of him, to be honest. I watched him a couple of times in the youth game, in the Youth Cup, before we lost in the final to West Ham. But I thought he looked very, very good on the ball, like very strong. The best thing I could say is probably he didn't look 16. He looked like he was a regular member of the first team, which was quite impressive, to be honest. The frustration for me is I've heard a lot of people comparing him to. They've immediately looked at him and gone and somehow compared him to Fabio Vieira's performance, and I'm like, that's not the way I looked at it, to be honest. And I actually took some positives from Fabio Vieira's performance, who took Odegaard's position, who picked up a knock, and I thought he did fine, to be honest. I mean, he was an Odegaard, but there isn't many Odegaards out there. But what I found quite interesting in the second half was Fabio Vieira took Saka's spot. And I think that's where Fabio Vieira might feature the most. He's definitely more comfortable on the right side than he is in the sort of left 8 position that we saw him in a couple of times last season and stuff like that. He's definitely more comfortable filling in for Odegaard or filling in for Saka. But I just think we've got to be patient with Vieira. I think he was bought for 35 million for a reason. I think there's some star quality there. So I mean, I'd actually put Vieira as one of my positives. Saliba being back fit was a fantastic thing. I thought when I first saw the lineup, I was like, "Geez, Saliba starting." I thought he'd play, but not start. And he looked like Saliba. Do you know what I mean? He looked actually him, Gabriel, and White looked literally like a regular Premier League season. I thought White looked very sharp. He looked like, I think I text you this now, he looked like there's a right back about to be announced tomorrow. I better play very well, and I think the push for White will do him the world of good in a way, because Tomiyasu couldn't provide that for him because of injury and whatnot. So I thought that was really good. And then the other positive was actually, I thought Thomas Partey looked pretty good. I thought Thomas Partey played in the 6. I think that's a positive in a way. I mean, he might leave, but if he doesn't leave, he's pretty handy. So, and he didn't look like the Thomas Partey towards the latter end of the season. He looked a bit more like the Thomas Partey that we know for 2/3.
Maybe it's another one that's like, oh, there's a 6 coming. I bet.
Yeah, possibly, or possibly going, well, I've waited 4 years to play in the Champions League with you, and I'd like a crack at it now. Considering I left the Champions League Cup to come here in a way, I could understand his desire to do that in a way. And I'm still very in two minds about whether, it depends what money's on the table, I think, to be honest. Well, and also who the replacement would be. That would be the real big sort of factor in whether we decide to let Thomas Partey go. But those were my big positives, to be honest. I thought Partey looked quite sharp. Thought Waneri very, very star quality, and I thought it was fantastic to see Saliba back. And I thought that first 50 minutes we were very, very dominant, like the Arsenal we saw for the majority of last season. But James, I mean, caveating it all with it's the first pre-season game. We understand everyone's at different fitness levels, but if you're going to take any sort of negatives about it, I put one of my negatives as being the Odegaard and Trossard injuries, because it is frustrating. You want everyone to have a full pre-season. Hopefully Odegaard's, the quotes from Arteta make it sound like Odegaard got kicked in the calf. If it's a kick in the calf, I'm not that worried. If it's a pull on the calf, I'm more worried. And Trossard, I don't think we've really got any information, but he went off. Obviously, we're being pretty cautious, which is the wise thing to do in the pre-season. But did you take any other sort of, slight negatives or concerns from the first pre-season game, James?
For me, not really. I know people said about the missed chances from all three of the forwards. But for me, I'd be more worried if we weren't creating or getting in those sort of scenarios in the first place. So, because for me, I'm like, you can teach the finishing. The goals can come, but it's the movement. The movement and everything else from Balogun to get that run in. That's impressive. There's not many at our club that can get in behind like that and do that. Again, we've watched Jesus in this league for a very, very long time. We know what he's about. We know what he can do. And there's I'm not one that slanders Jesus. I think if he stays fit, he probably would get closer to 20, 25 goals because he was near enough there before he got injured, weren't he? And then he just tried to pick it up near the end. And Balogun, if he does stay, I hope that it's Eddie that goes and he stays because, again, I've seen what Eddie can do compared to him, and I think he offers a bit more than what Eddie can. I think he's a better alternative than what Eddie can give us. But we'll wait and see on that one because he's made Eddie part of the leadership group. I don't know if you saw that comment after. He said he's one of my main voices now in the dressing room.
He's not going anywhere.
Well,
do you know what else I saw? Did you see the video Arsenal posted of everyone clapping the kids' hands who were watching at Nuremberg training ground? And Arteta, straight after he's clapped the last kid's hand, he's over to Eddie, his arms round him. And I'm just watching this, and I'm like, he has backed him. He's not going to let him go, man. He's not going to let him go. I don't think even if a bid come in, I think we turn it down, to be honest. And then coincide with that. Sorry to interrupt you, because I just wanted to bring up one thing that you mentioned. He got asked about Balogun, and he said, Balogun, he's just staying here with us at the moment, and we will see what happens. I mean, I didn't hear those quotes, but I'm not sure how I could interpret them many other ways other than the fact that we're just getting him for a US tour and then he'll be sold. That's basically how I took it. And I think you're right, though. I mean, I'd rather do what you said, James, but it doesn't feel it's going to happen that way, does it?
Yeah. Yeah, and another thing for me as well is I thought at the time, with Granit Xhaka now leaving, that, and I said it on the video that I did for my channel, I was like, well, Gabriel's now the vice, isn't he? For me, it just naturally felt like Gabriel would be the vice captain. Yeah, well, he had it until Jesus come on, then he gave it to him. And part of me was just like, if he sees Gabriel Jesus as the vice, I'm not sure on that one for me. I've got no pro. Some people think if you say anything out of turn towards Gabriel Jesus, you dislike him. I love him. He's the perfect forward for us when we signed him. Do I believe that we're going to improve in there in the future? Yeah. I feel that each year we have a big outlay on one player. This year we've done it on Declan. I do believe the next summer we are probably going to go a big time 90+ million fee on a forward, because I just feel naturally that's probably the next big hole that he's going to want to fill in the side. He's probably going to want someone that is going to get you 30, 40, not 20, 25, which I think Arsenal do need, regardless of all the other forwards that we do have at the club. I still think we do need the 30, 40 goal a season, man. But yeah, other than that, there wasn't no real... Havertz, he was quiet. He was quiet, but we've all said that there's going to be an adaptation time there. And I know people see the fee and they expect, oh my God, he cost this much and he should be this, and this. But, I hate to compare to other clubs, but how much did Anthony cost Man United? And he's still trying to settle in now. This was Havertz's first game. Let's chill. a bit, please.
He does have that languid sort of physical style that mimics Ozil and Berbatov. And I wonder if things aren't going well for him, whether the fans get on his back a little bit more because of things like that, you know?
Yeah, but the thing is, unlike them, you even saw it at, he didn't have the best season last season, but when Havertz has to shift, he'll shift. Whereas Berbatov and Ozil, you never got, he's quick. When he wants to move, he'll move. Yeah. So, I just think people will nitpick it. I mean, the goal as well. Sorry to sorry to Hein in goal, but mate, come on. Even in a pre-season game, you can't be putting the ball in that area. Yeah, that is just, I lambasted Ramsdale for when he done it at the Southampton game, because you have to go out wide there. That in the playing straight into a press. I'm like, you don't get 10-year-olds doing that, mate. I'm sorry.
No, Runnison was clapping, I bet.
Oh yeah. He's like, I'm third choice without even playing here. Well done.
Moving up the pecking order.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah,
exactly. But felt for him. But he had a couple of real dodgy moments. Karl Hein, and I probably don't expect to see him featuring much now that Matt Turner's out of the Gold Cup and probably should return for the US tour. I would have thought, as he's been sort of nearby anyway. So I expect him, like Smith Rowe, to return pretty sharpish. But Neil, what about you? Any sort of takeaway? We touched on Havertz a little bit. I mean, for sure, talk about anything else that you're thinking. But I mentioned this. I think you did, James, as well. Is that especially if we're going to renew our whole midfield? But Havertz is someone that hasn't played in midfield in any team for 2 to 3 years, really, and since he was in Germany. Germany converted him like Chelsea did to kind of this false nine. I think he's played a little bit wide for them at times, but he's basically played in that false nine position. And Chelsea almost solely played him in that position over the last sort of 18 months. But, so we have to expect that adaptation period, and this is the time to go through that process. That's why you get him in as your first signing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's too early. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's the first game. He didn't play the full match. It's stupid. It's like you have to give some players. I mean, I know it can be argued that, well, he's got Prem experience. Yeah, but he's got Prem experience with a team and a setup that probably didn't suit him. I think you have to look back at what he did at Germany, and the evidence is there that he was awesome there. He was outstanding. He was sending shockwaves through the world when he was there. Everyone was talking about him. I think he broke a couple of records as well for his age of what he did out there. And I think if we get the player that was the Leverkusen player rather than the Chelsea player, we're laughing. I mean, you mentioned that, he's going to have to adapt to the midfield, but he's got the versatility to play a little bit more forward anyway. He can chip in with goals. He's good with his head. Ozil wasn't really a header. I mean, if you want to compare him because of his language style a little bit with Ozil was never a header. I mean, he can get goals with his head, so he's got the aerial ability as well. I've got no issues with him at all. I mean, from what I've learned over the last 2 years, especially with Edu and Arteta, they're making cuter signings. They're not going to spend and give an outlay on someone of that much money thinking, oh, where are we going to use him? What are we going to do with him? Oh, he might just be a filler player. No, of course he's not be a filler player. He's going to be a very significant player. And we need it. We've spoken about depth. Even without the Champions League, we lacked depth last season. Now we've got Champions League. This is why we're getting these players in. And I feel that Arteta and Edu are getting in versatility players. Have you noticed that? I don't know who said it. It might be one of you guys, or it might have been a famous manager. But someone once said that a good footballer is a player that can play in all positions. It might have been you, James. But if you have a player that can play in literally every position, that is a good footballer. That's a mark of a good footballer. And I think that's the road that these guys are going down. They're getting these versatility players in. Look at the back. Look at with Timber. Look at all the defenders that we've got. Save possibly Gabriel and Saliba, who are exceptional in their own positions. Everyone else in defence can play different positions. It's crazy. And then I think the same with Havertz. He can move around a bit. He can certainly play forward if need be. Because of what he can do with it in front of goal. I've got no issues with it at all. I think they are getting in these players where people were moaning about a lack of a plan B if things weren't going well. He's got the players now that he can shuffle and change, and they can manoeuvre around. And in game as well, as James was saying earlier about the forwards, we can swap and change in game. That bamboozles defenders. Jesus was doing that anyway automatically when we first saw him. He was all over the place. And I just think that Havertz is going to fit that kind of mould. And I don't necessarily think he's just going to be in midfield. I think he's going to be shuffled around a bit. I think it's a tremendous signing. But can I just say on Saliba as well, wow, thank God we've got that over the line, because that is, for me, that was the most important aspect of this transfer window. I'm so pleased with Nelson, because I wanted him to. But Saliba, wow, to get him secured. And now the fact that we've got this young lad in who's going to be awesome for us as well, Timber. I can just see the roots of Man City unwinding, that tree falling, and Timber making the impact. I really can.
Yeah, love it. But you know what's quite interesting is when you look at the starting lineup yesterday, I mean, it felt like even then he was trying to go close to his strongest starting lineup that was fit. Of course, Havertz wasn't fit. He'd only had a few days training, so had Jesus, I believe. So there's a couple of exceptions. But you look at it and you go, well, there's still a lot of change to happen to that team by the first game of the season, right? You've got Zinchenko possibly to come back in, Rice. You've got Jesus as your central striker, Odegaard, who got dropped out because he got injured. Martinelli wasn't even in the squad. And I'm sitting there going, we look really strong, and we've got probably 5 or 6 players for certain that are going to be changed from that. And that starts to show the depth and the layers that we're starting to build, I think, with the team, which is very, very impressive. But the only other negative I wrote down, was go on, James, put in right now. And then
I was just going to say quick. I know we joke about it and we talk about it a lot in the WhatsApp group. Did you guys notice? And I don't know if it was because the new shirts are even tighter than the previous ones. When Jesus come on, that sort of area, I was like, I
think he looks a little heavy, Jesus, personally.
Oh, really? I thought his chest and his shoulders were bulky. I'm like, he looks a bit strength. He looks like he's hit the older.
I thought he looked a little sluggish.
Okay.
And I watched it could just be me.
You're in much better shape than me, so I'll take your word.
No, it could just be me, but I do look at this stuff a lot.
I get tired grating cheese, mate. So yeah, I understand.
But do you remember Nuremberg? He'd already signed by Nuremberg last year, and he was so sharp. I mean, he was amazing. We were 2-0 down last year, and then Jesus came on and scored a couple, and he was incredible. And that doesn't mean he's deteriorated or anything like that. But I noticed a training video of him doing some shooting practice, and I thought he looked a little slow. To be honest, I thought he looked like he was turning slow, and we don't know. Jesus might be a player that needs those first few weeks to get himself in the fit. I'm not worried. I'm definitely not worried at all, because I just think he's brilliant and his energy is amazing. So I've got no worries at all with Jesus. But he did look to me, even in this game, quite sluggish, just a little bit sluggish, But that's why he's getting the minutes in there for. He didn't start, which is probably a sign that he also hasn't had much training either, or full training or whatever. So, and some players just keep themselves smoothly going. Like, look at Saka, he didn't have any training, he just walks back in, looks exactly the same. But he's a specimen, and he's unbelievable. The only other negative I did write down was Cedric. I mean, he was dreadful towards the end of that game. And I have to say, I don't know how many people you can take on the US tour, but with another right back coming in Timber and Tomiyasu almost fit, we've got to leave him at home. I mean, I know he's good around the group and he wears tight trousers and all that sort of stuff, but honestly, he's rubbish. He's utter rubbish. And what frustrates me is he's not keeping him around the group, even like Holding, keeping him around. But he will now take minutes away from people that we've got plenty of minutes to give out in that position. It'd be different if we were like, who's going to rotate him for White in the 70th minute in the pre-season? It's not like that now. We've genuinely got 3 right backs before him, and I just don't think, like I've seen with some clubs, they just leave players at home because they know they're looking for another club. Like Nicolas Pepe, just leave him at home. Leave Nicolas Pepe at home. Don't take him. I'd rather see Winieri outright, or do you know what I mean? Like, I just think there's a couple of people that I know it's not the way Arsenal do things, but I just think, well, to be honest, Pepe should be back now anyway. I see him training in the gym on Instagram every day, doing his single leg press 12 times in a row. His legs are skinnier than my forearms, by the way. And honestly, I'd just leave him at home. Let him find his move. Leave him at home. He don't want to come on a tour. He'd be back in training, wouldn't he? I mean, there's no reason.
Jack, was it Cedric in the second half? Because I don't want to critique him if it wasn't him, but he was on most of the set piece. We had that free kick.
Yes, he was on all the corners.
Yeah, but it looked like whoever took that free, I cannot remember if it was Cedric or not, but they hit their own feet as they took it, and it just sort of went in the air, like it went up in the air like that. It didn't go to anybody. It just sort of was like a keepy uppy, weren't it?
But it's got to be Cedric.
I was just like, whoever that is, sell them. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
I was like, Havertz is in the box, like, oh, here we go. This is, I'm 6'4". This is a bit of a whippy delicia and it's header time. And it just went, like, like you get them bottle rockets, don't you, where you stamp on the pedal and it just goes up it. I was like, oh, for God. I was like, yeah, I know it's pre-season, but I was like, oh, bloody hell, he can't even take a free kick. Just get rid.
yeah, exactly. Holding, I'd make an exception for. I know there's been a bid from Besiktas. I expect bids in England to come through at some point, and that bid was a joke. But
he paid more. He paid more than that to get his hair done in Turkey. 2.5
there you
mil.
go, exactly.
Talking about
exactly.
Yeah.
That's a ridiculous bid, to be honest. That is quite offensive. But not that you should go for a crazy amount. But you're talking at least.
Well, we've all been offered more than that to take the podcast to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
I'm giving my money to Todd Bowley. I said no. So that's it. but I know it might sound harsh, but I just think where we're stacked, let it go. If Holding's putting his time, he's clearly not good enough, but he's putting his time with the first team. He's clearly part of that leadership group. Of course, taking him on the US tour wouldn't be a problem. But the likes of Cedric, who haven't really played or been amongst the group for 12 months or so, as Nicolas Pepe as well, not done anything wrong as such, but I just don't think it sends a great message to keep him around it. I'm not sure it does, but look, overall good run out.
He doesn't even have a squad number, Jack. That's how you know that Pepe's not.
Yeah. I think he probably said that to me. It's a bit like Lucas Torreira last year, isn't it?
Yeah, but the fact that he was on loan and Trossard got his number then, that for me was just like, you are finite, like you are never coming back.
Gonna have to pay him off, aren't we?
Yeah,
but,
I reckon so.
Yeah, but get it done, get it out of the way, or just keep him out of the group so we can keep the group a bit more tight knit. And if we can take one or two youngsters, to the US tour, it'd be massive for them, wouldn't it? It really would. I don't know if we take all three of those, but after Wanyeri's performance, he's going to be on a plane. I mean, he's going to be, I think. So that's fantastic. But I mean, on the Balogun stuff, just to go back to it, I mean, yeah, he had two sort of gilt-edged chances that in a real game you don't want to miss. But I do think, encouraged by the fact that you're just getting into that position so easily. Maybe a lot easier than someone like Eddie would. I think I heard someone on another stream sort of say, Eddie always looks like he has to work really hard to get his goals and his chances. And I was like, yeah, I feel that a little bit at times, And Balogun seemed to just sits on the shoulder. He has a bit more presence, maybe, centrally. But the comments and it might be coming more from the player as well. We can't forget that. The player might be going, I don't want the Eddie role. And Eddie looks like he's quite happy in the Eddie role of being, a sort of second striker kind of thing, or maybe even a third striker, And we'll get a lot more money for Balogun. It's just the way it is. Setting a buyback clause somewhere in there, something like that, and I think we're all happy, aren't we, probably? If we get a good fee. We get something close to 40 million, I would say we're probably all not happy but satisfied that, we needed to do that in order for, because it was just timing, etc. And plus his contract, if he's not going to sign it, we're just depreciating his value. So I think I've kind of come to terms with that.
I'd rather him go abroad, though, because I'd hate him to go to a rival and then he does magic.
I think he will go abroad, Neil. I get the sense that we'll get more bids. We might not get, but I think we'll get enough bids from abroad. A lot of the Leipzig links, Milan, Monaco, those being the early links. I think he'll go. He might even go before the end of the US tour, but I do think he'll he'll get moved on, to be honest. Is there anyone else that you took sort of anything from Tierney? But he played the second half. Tierney, I still think there's a good chance a Newcastle or a Villa come back in for Tierney at some point. Maybe it's not their priority right now or something, but I still think there's a really good chance. So, again, it's pretty telltale sign that Kirior, we didn't have Tomiyasu, we didn't have Zinchenko, and Kirior starting this game ahead of him. I mean, they're both internationals. They both came back on the same day to training. So really, he's fourth in the pecking order now. If you think about it that way, James, right? Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that could happen. It's very much, for me, other people have to move from their clubs in order to get these things over the line, because the big talk has been Celtic. He'd love it. Obviously, he's like, yeah, I'd love to go back there, but they're like, well, we can only offer a loan. And then the wage, we can't cover the full wage. And I don't think we would loan him. I think it's like, no, you buy him and that's that. And the noisy neighbours, obviously, their old superhero that has milkshake after his first chicken wing on Hot Ones, that ain't even, that's the equivalent of McDonald's sweet chili sauce, and he's grabbing the milk, the coward. Yeah, unbelievable, mate. Unbelievable. I always thought he was a bottle job anyway. And then just to see him grab the milk after the first wing, I was like, oh, you're a mug, mate. I can't. Absolute joker. If he does end up going to old Bavaria, then they would like I think if Bernadette's watching, she's going to butcher me for this. I think it's pronounced Fuhashi is the striker that plays for. He's brilliant, by the way. He's a really, really good player. But I think that's who they'd want to replace him with, and he will cost them quite a bit of money from Celtic. So if they get that fee in, depending on how much he'd let them re-spend of it, they could probably afford to buy Tierney back for the fee that we're looking, because I think Celtic would sell Fuhashi for about maybe 30-35 mil.
What did they get for Jota from Saudi Arabia? Do you remember?
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah.
There was a fee there, wasn't there? Because that was a real surprise to them.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I wouldn't be able to tell you, I'm afraid, mate.
I'm Googling it right now.
I was shocked. Yeah, I was shocked he went, because he's another one. He's a brilliant player. He's a very, very good player.
Yeah, very good. Declan Rice has just said his goodbyes to West Ham. So he's posted on Instagram that, he's leaving, etc. So we mentioned just before we recorded the podcast that whilst the Arsenal video won't get posted just yet, we expect the West Ham one to happen, early this morning probably, because we're going to release ours later. So it's all in process. We won't obviously talk about the announcement.
A lot of apologies to Edu and Arteta, I expect, today then.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't get anything over the line, eh?
I know. I don't know what it is. And
someone's going to be sent a lot of Leoda memes today.
Yeah, exactly. Sky Sports are an absolute shambles with the old any clickbait comment to try to ruin us. They don't do it to anyone else today. But to wheel that toss piece out again as well. Cabo.
I'm like, we all sussed him out last summer, and you got him on here again. It's the classic, isn't it? They know that we react and everything else like that. I'm guilty of it. But yeah, as soon as all of the, and these are people with somewhat big accounts online, and they're retweeted it like, oh, look at that. I'm like, do you really believe? Sky of all people? I'm like, this is the same channel that Gillian Balogun told me that Patrick Kluivert was a done deal. And as a kid, I was absolutely over the moon.
I was on holiday. I was delighted when I heard that.
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember 25 million for Jota. Celtic are supposed to have got, so that's a decent fee.
Well, there you go. Yeah,
you never know. You never know. But Jurriën Timber, Neil. Jurriën Timber has officially been announced. Fantastic video by Ajax, and just a good one by us. But really, I think 38 million, 36 million plus add-on, so about 40 million pounds eventually for a 22-year-old who's played a lot of games for Ajax at right back At right centre back. A few games at right back for Ajax and for Holland recently, as he's pushed Dumfries out of the team there and really been a big part of it. And some glowing reports back from people, big Dutch players like Van Basten and people like this, just talking really, really strongly on how good Jurrien Timber is and will become. But what do you think for us, Neil? How do you think he fits in? Do you think he's someone that comes in right away, eases his way in because we've got a really solid right side with White and Sleeper? And do you think it means anything we've seen Holding linked to Besiktas in the last sort of day, like strongly linked. Do you think is it just Holding that means we can let him go now without replacing? Or do you think it means anything else for maybe other people like Tierney, like other people within the back line?
God, it's just so many possibilities. I don't know. It's hard to talk about the departures until they actually happen. I mean, even with the Partey one, it's really difficult to say what exactly are the plans for the bosses and Edu and the coaching team with what to do with these players. But we can speak about the player. I mean, yes, in terms of maybe his only kind of one weakness, maybe his aerials. He's not too good on there, but what he lacks there, he makes up with abundance in his other skills and his other areas. He's an on the ball player. He's fantastic. He's quick. He can dribble. I think he's strong when he's in a 1-on-1. Very, very strong. And I've watched a little bit of his footage now since we signed him, and I love the fact that he reminds me of a player who's this is me talking about myself here, who's slightly shorter, but their centre of gravity is really good, in the sense that they're well balanced. They can come out of those 1-on-1 situations, but then what he does with it, he moves forward. He's progressive. He's very progressive, and that can really help us. I think, we used to have a lack of players. You remember when we had no one going forward? No one in the team. Do you remember those days? We had no one with us doing the podcast for money. Who's going forward? Who's creating? Now so many of our players are doing that. They get on the ball. Their vision is forward. Let's go forward. Let's move forward. Now, I know Arteta doesn't like that too much about he wants his centre-backs to do that. But the fact that he's got that, there are times where we will need a player to do this, and he can do it. He certainly can. Saliba has got good vision. He's got good vision. They can all move forward. They can progress with the ball, and I love that about him. But he's just a player, to get someone in for that much money, he's not going to sit back. I don't think he's going to sit back. I'm not saying he's going to start every single game, but I don't think a lot of our players are now going to start every single game. I think now we're in a position where we can be so clever with how we manage people's fitness and God forbid if there's injuries or suspensions, but mainly on the fitness levels, we can manage it so well that we are going to be at a level throughout the whole season where we're not going to drop off, in the sense that if a player needs to be changed, the level isn't going to drop off. There's not going to be a huge gaping chasm. I mean, look what happened with Saliba. When he got injured, we had a massive drop-off because the player that came in wasn't probably at the level that we expected or wanted because of what we'd done throughout the season up to that point. Now, if something like that happens, you got a player that can come in who's probably not far off. Like James was saying earlier, was it you, Jack? Vieira is an Odegaard, but he's, given time, he's going to be a player and he won't be far off. So same with Timber coming in for someone else. But we've got versatility there. But I think whilst he can play the centre, I mean, I'm hoping Gabriel and Saliba just stay fit throughout the season, so we don't need to worry about it. But there are going to be possibilities where he will come in that position. But I see him more potentially on the right. But apparently he can play in the midfield as well. He can move forward. So again, we've got that interchangeability with another player. We've got it with so many now that even if it necessarily doesn't happen as a starting position, there could be changes in game where they can move around. And I'm sure he's going to, because he loves going forward. He's coming. He's got a couple of assists and a couple of goals to his name. The footage I saw, I mean, all right, YouTube footage, even the worst players can look pretty decent because you highlight those moments. But I mean, he's come with, as you said, he's got the credibility. He's got people backing him. You've got big superstars saying this guy's going to be good. And I think he's the kind of player, the depth player that we needed to push forward and progress from what we have achieved last season. And I'm so happy that we've got him. And it also gives comfort to the other players around him that, not only from a challenge point of view to up their game, like you said, with the Ben White situation, he's thinking, hang on a minute, I've got to look good now. We've got this right back coming in potentially. So, and now we've got him. And but I just also think that adding that quality to the team, I just think it speaks volumes of where we're going and what we're hoping to achieve. So, yes, he might not start every game, and I'm not worried about that at all. But I don't think many players are now going to be doing that. I think Arteta's going to be very clever the way. Can you not see the similarities of the way Pep manages his team? Can you see what Arteta's doing? He's almost mimicking it in a way. I mean, I think Pep used so many of his defenders last season in that treble win. We've got the options to do that as well now. And we've got so much better to do there. So, yeah,
I think the biggest difference with us and Pep's sides are probably the wingers. In Saka, or maybe you could argue Saka and Martinelli are a throwback to Pep's old style, where he had like Sterling and Sane out there, that were much more dynamic, where he kind of got rid of those and went for controllers, didn't he? He went for players that basically... It's
not as greedy as him, but yeah, it's very reminiscent of when he had Ribéry and Robben as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Saka don't just hold on to the ball for 90 minutes of a game. He will pass the ball. Unlike Ian Robben for me used to be a FIFA player, but he removed the X button. He only had run and shoot. He didn't have nothing else. He wouldn't play. He cost the Champions League final. He let Chelsea win a Champions League final.
It's the World Cup final too, didn't he?
Well, yeah. I was like, just square the ball. Look, they're there.
Yeah. But he was very effective for a large period of time at doing it.
Hated him, and I hate people that look like they're 60 where they're only 25 as well.
Yeah. I know. He was a one-trick pony, but he just kept doing it, didn't he? And no one could stop it. It was very annoying, but it is that's the biggest difference. But in terms of defensively and how we build, I agree. For some reason, I look at Timber and I think it would be so interesting to see when he does, because I agree. I think he's going to play more at the right back position, which means it will protect White's legs a little bit more, but it will also allow to protect Saliba's legs, because White will become our second choice right centre back. I think he'll become our second choice right centre back. The one thing I'm not sure about is how Timber plays with what type of left back. I tend to think it would be more of a Kivior type than a Zinchenko type, because I think Kivior, although he inverted in this game, I think he has the ability to sort of be much more sort of, sort of stay wide and maintain his position a little bit more, to create more of a back three and allow Timber to invert. Whereas having Zinchenko and Timber doing it, unless you're going against a team that's very, very defensive, I find it might put a little bit too much onus on the two centre backs, but it's great options, like you said, like Neil. It's fantastic options, and he looks like he's a really sort of level-headed bloke from everything you can hear from Ajax, and they've only got good things to say about him. And it's really good though at Ajax, because they're really proud of the players that come out of their academy. They're just, you can tell when they post a video like that, they're just so proud of producing these players and nurturing these players, and almost this expectancy and not willingness, but sort of understanding that these players eventually going to move.
They genuinely care, don't they?
They really do. And I feel like Per Mertesacker's really built that back again. Like Wenger was big on that. In fairness, but it's also really nice to hear about. When he says, "Oh, my brother was a huge Arsenal fan," and you just remember how much previous eras can really provide for future ones, and of course I think Arteta and Edu have played a huge part, but I don't think we can forget.
But they're arguably the greatest academy in world football.
Yeah,
if you look throughout history, I mean, it was years ago. I was lucky enough, 19th birthday, 2010. I went to Amsterdam for my birthday, did the tour, and funny enough, the tour guide was actually an Arsenal fan as well. And we were talking loads and loads about Bergkamp, Overmars, just proper reminiscing. But when you go there, you end up, towards the end of the tour, you end up in, I think it's like a private lounge, but they've literally got a wall that's 10 times the size of mine behind me with every single player and I tell you what, you could stand there looking for ages going, oh, he was a player. He was a player. Oh, he was a player. And this is just it. They are a selling club. because of how good but the production line that they've got another 3 or 4 Timbers coming through, mate. You don't have to, they don't worry. They take the money. And what I liked as well is he's done I don't think it was on his official video, but there was other statements that come out and everything. And he just said, look, I'm probably not the biggest and loudest personality, but my biggest strengths are my calmness and my control. And I'm like, if he's coming on the pitch as a sub, what more do you want from someone that's coming into a game than calmness and control? I'm like, well, you'll do for me if that's your 2 best attribute, apart from being rapid as well. You've got calmness and control. I'll take you all day.
Yeah, and Ben White is not a 2-game-a-week player at right back. He's not.
Exactly.
He's not.
No, he's not.
We saw it in last season when we had to play him in the Europa League, or we had a double Premier League game. And we were all saying, we were like, I'm worried about Ben White this game. And we'd have to, sometimes we'd have to pull him off, or he just looked leggy. And it's just saves him. Even if Ben White does play twice in a week, maybe you shift him to centre back once and you go, Saliba, let's rest you out because we've got a long season. Good options.
Me and Neil, we've sat there with Mike enough times as well on his show, and we've just said we need level raisers. And these 2 that are coming in, they are, in terms of what Declan Rice does as a starter, we know. But in terms of what Timber could do even as a, not starting, but potentially being someone that's, he can start the games after, or he can be brought into games. You don't feel, Neil makes a great point. There is not that much of a decline or a drop-off. We've spoke about it earlier. It's not Cedric coming into the game. It's, this is someone that's, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. No. Yeah, you make a good point. And I think it's amazing. I think we've done an amazing job in terms of how we've sort of planned the transfer window again, just like last season. I think it's been really fantastic. And I'm just sorry, I just flicked on to see if Rice had been announced on our end yet. But, it's just a matter of minutes probably at this point. But it's pretty incredible to see it. This is the biggest British record transfer in a Premier League, and Arsenal should absolutely milk the hell out of it, hopefully, and I'm sure we will. And I'm actually quite buzzing to see the guys on the plane on Sunday and all that sort of stuff. You love seeing new signings, but especially when there's a real plan in mind. It's really, really fantastic to see. But a couple of other questions I just had was on the signings, if we do another signing, and I know we said on the last podcast that it would have to occur probably alongside sales in that position, but if we assume, whichever sales you want happen and whatnot, Neil, where would you say this squad is kind of lacking for you going into the season now that Rice, Timber and Havertz are confirmed? Where would you say, if I could get one more, I'd get one there because I'm worried about that position?
Oh, all right. Well, certainly not defence. Happy with that. We've got about 20 goalkeepers, so whether they're all good or not, it's very irrelevant. We don't need more goalkeepers.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
So all the backside of the team is fine. I think I would still say, you might be surprised at this, I would still say central midfield, only because there's still an unknown about Partey. And even if he stays, we've got, who we got there? We got Jorginho, El Neni, potentially Havertz can play there, I guess. But, El Neni is what is mainly going to be remaining for his coaching. He's a filler player. And I think, if anything, he'll be a filler player for the Cups. I don't think he's going to be coming on too much in the Prem and the Champions League, unless catastrophe. And we don't even want to go there. We don't want to even think about that. And then you've got Jorginho, who I think will be more valuable in the European games more than maybe the Prem, where he's got his experience there, of course. And I think he's a good player. I'm glad he's going to be with us for another season at least. Anyway, it looks that way. But I still feel, even with the introduction and addition of Rice, I still feel that we potentially could get an understudy in that position potentially. I don't know who that could be, because I know that guy that we've been looking at is potentially going to Liverpool. Is that right? Lavia, that's it. So I don't know, but I just feel that Partey, there's still a bit of an uncertainty. With Partey also, is he going to sustain? He might look good again and fresh again in what you were talking about in the pre-season friendly the other day. But is he going to have the levels to sustain it or see it up for a whole season with the Champions League as well? I hope so. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope that what we've got is good enough. But I just feel that if we just get one more player in, I wouldn't mind it being in that central mid position. I think my concern, like we mentioned on the pod last time, Jack, and you were very right to think this, the right-sided, the right winger position was paramount. But I think we've got so many options there. Jesus, we've got Havertz potentially can play there if he needs to. We've got Nelson, we've got Saka. We've got players that can go into that position, and I don't think it's such a problem anymore. So I think, if anything, it's the central midfield. And I also feel, for what James said earlier, he might not be coming this season, but I still even think a striker, a really hungry, selfish goal scorer. All our players are a little bit unselfish, and they're looking to do the perfect pass and feed others through. And sometimes we're always still screaming, even last season, shoot, what's wrong with you? Well, you just shoot. I want that player that is selfish, who's hungry. Like, no, it's my goal. I'm going to go for it. I'm not going to pass it to no one. Those old school. I still feel if we had that in addition to what we've already got, wow, my goodness me. I mean, as it stands, I said to you, I'd be happy if we secure Saliba, if Nelson signs, if ESR stays for life, and then we get these two, three. We already had Havertz at the time, but if we secure Timber and Rice, I'll be more than happy. I mean, even with that, just think about our bench already. You forget the 11 players that started. You look at our bench, it's going to look so juicy. It's going to look, oh my God, look at the players that we could bring on if we need to, and the system can change in game if we need to. But if we can get another one or two in, which I don't think is far from the realms of, I think it could happen as long as we get the sales now. But I think these now signings will happen later on in the window. These are the ones where we're typical Arsenal, where we buy at the 11th hour for our main key players. We don't need to do that now. I think we've got our key players in. We've got the important positions in. Now it's just a matter of possibly we might get a couple of others, one or two maybe, depending on the sales. But I think that's a big factor now. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, no, very good. James, what about you?
Yeah, I think we'll move again. But I don't think it will be until a few have left. I mean, Neil's right in terms of a midfielder. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's probably going to be another number 6 unless we get a big departure there, which would be, Thomas Partey leaving. But then it's very much that they're still looking at offering the proposals. It's not concrete. There's no real concrete bids or anything that I've seen, Jack. Me and you keep tabs on nearly everything as well, ins and outs. So, but there's nothing concrete there. It's all very much hearsay type. But I do believe that we're potentially, if with Lokonga going, with Patino going potentially as well. I think this Patillo lad looks like
Brazil,
he's
yeah.
Probably
Remio,
he looks like he's I think he's I think once someone like a Lokonga or whatever does depart, I can see this lad coming in. It's very us type of signing. He's 23. He looks, again, very small sample size because it's Neil made a great point. I can go out in my back garden and edit it and make myself look like Messi. I'm not, but I can do it. So, I can see us going for this boy. It's not like that Danilo Pereira where everyone was like, "Oh, it's done, it's done." This seems to have a bit more. The fact that some of the South American journalists have come out and gone, "No, Arsenal." Not just watched him at this game last week and the one before. There's been Arsenal people at his games since. Yeah,
it's a legit Brazilian journalist that released it.
Yeah.
I want to say similar to what was released from Martinelli. So
since about December time, right? They've said that we've been going over there or something. Just even in the January sort of winter time, we've been looking at this guy for quite a while. So about 6 or so months we've been watching him. So yeah, I can see him potentially coming. And after that, the big rumours coming from the others was that he is looking for another midfielder and then the right winger cover. But I don't know. I don't see that right wing one myself still. I think there's too many players that, you've renewed Nelson for $100,000 a week. You've got to give him more than the 171 minutes you gave him last season.
Are you concerned that it's not obvious who the right winger is, though? You can, maybe it is Nelson. Is there a concern that, we don't need to know, only Arteta needs to know it, but it wasn't obvious last season and we're amongst the same players. So is there a concern there? Because we do want to make sure we protect Saka, don't we?
Of course, yeah. And in the game yesterday, he played Nelson predominantly left.
Yeah, he did.
Which some people even think is a better position than on the right. So it's very much, I don't know where all of them get minutes. They will, and there's plenty of games to get it in. But I just don't know. You got Trossard, you got Smith Rowe coming back. You got all of them could potentially be left eights or the left winger if Martinelli isn't playing.
Yeah.
So it's very much, it's a great problem to have, but it is a problem.
Yeah, I think Fabio Vieira will get the most minutes there. I could be wrong. I think it might be.
Jack, I agree with you. He in that second half, he was the only one making really progressive-y type passes for a while until those young lads come on. So it all got very, very sideways, didn't it, for a bit? But he was the only one that really was trying to feed the ball through. And like you said, he was very good. And people forget, he didn't have a pre-season with us last year.
No.
He's going to get more minutes. He's going to get more time. And, I don't think he's terrible anyway. I know a lot of people do. A lot of people want to loan him or sell him.
I like him.
But, yeah, same. And there's enough that I've seen there to make me think that once it finally does, the old Arteta catchphrase, just wait because this will bang. Once it bangs for him, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. Yeah. I don't have no reservations about his talent or anything at all.
Yeah, it just depends if, like how some positions Arteta wants to mimic what he's got, so he gets a player that's similar. And other positions, he wants something different, right? So you sort of say the 9, for example, we all want something different than Jesus, and we start to think Eddie, while he's a different player profile-wise, he doesn't offer a lot difference when he comes on. That's why he doesn't really make an impact as a sub. But whereas other positions, you really want to mimic it. So when you lose Zinchenko, you want, where's Zinchenko 2.0? I just want to do what he did, but with more defensive capabilities. So it's almost like, or in the 6, I just want someone that can do what Partey does at his peak when he's not fit. So it's quite interesting. But I think Fabio Vieira gives that quite sort of diverse difference to what Saka is. And I think he can provide a little bit more sort of control, a little bit more, assist ability from that wide right, and I think he's more comfortable on the right than he is in the centre of everything, where it's a bit more physical, a bit more tight. I think give him a little bit more space out right while he's still developing physically, and I think he might bang. I think he might.
Lads, bang. I think once the Man City tree felt the timber effect, we'll be celebrating with special fried rice because West Ham have announced their goodbyes.
Yes, saw the video. We were bang on, weren't we, at the start? I
think he might be a little sooner than we thought. Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be in the next hour
minutes,
or two.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't know how long Arsenal let it.
Well, City are still going to blow us out of the water, though, aren't they?
Well, Charles Watts has just posted that Arsenal have not been mentioned anywhere in the West Ham release. And I'm like, well, they've got no reason to mention us. They're just
they're not a big club, so they don't know what a big club is, do they? They're not going to talk about us.
We charge them to mention our name, so we don't want them to mention us. It's fine, but David Sullivan's clearly, he's a wally, isn't he? So whatever. But yeah, my position would be if I looked at the whole squad now as it is, would be the alternative striker. I think the problem obviously is you've got too many up there, like you just said. But I think when I look at us and at the front line, I think we need something different up there. Whether it's a physical presence, whether it's someone that can get goals a little bit, from less XG, whatever it might be. I think we need something different up there, but we need to remove a few, just like anywhere other position. I think with Partey, I'm very reluctant to say I want to sell Partey, because I do think if something happens at the 8, maybe Havertz needs the adaptation time. having Partey allows Rice to be at the 8, and it gives us another option there at the 8, and a midfield currently of Partey, Rice, and Odegaard. Actually, in my head, is the best 3 currently, because I've not seen enough of Havertz there yet. So I'm reluctant to say, yeah, let's get the big bid in for Thomas Partey, because if I understand we won't be able to refuse it if it does come in, but I'd be quite happy if it didn't come in. Because I'd be like, yeah, I'm pretty set on what our midfield is at the moment. I'll keep it as it is, you know. And there's no one better to learn from Declan Rice to know how to play the 6 in Arsenal's team than the person that's been doing it really well for the last 2 years. So I think I'm quite happy with that. I'm quite comfortable with him being there, to be honest. But let's see how it develops. Maybe Arteta isn't anymore, so we'll see.
You never know. The week before the season, we got the game against Monaco. Who used to play for Monaco, and we really wanted him, but we never got it over the line. And a new statue unveiling's the day after. You know, do a double announcement. Have Wenger show his statue, and then go, oh, by the way, just want to.
Yeah, exactly. You never know.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be the gold trophy one, isn't it? It's going to be the invincible hold. It's going to be.
I hope that it's him sat down trying to do his coat up. That's what I want. I think what a better tribute to the man.
Could be. There's been some interesting ones posted out there, but hopefully
when he's at Old Trafford after he's been sent off and he's like that. Yeah,
that would be great. I'd love that. I'd love that.
Yeah. There's been some good. Obviously, there's the one with the arms above at Tottenham away.
What, to the statue unveiling?
Be there?
I don't know if I'll be there the same day, but I'll definitely look at it when I go back. 100%.
Yeah,
100%. I mean, when we went to the Southampton game, didn't we? It was very much a rush to get in, so I didn't get to see all the wraps. I wanted to go walk around and look at all the wraps as well.
Yeah.
I saw the one I wanted to see. I saw the East Stand one, so I was happy.
That's great, that, isn't it? It's brilliant.
Yeah, that's quality. Just before we go, everyone else is moving a little bit in the market in terms of the teams that we hope and believe we'll be competing with. City, they've got Kovacic in. They look like they're after Benjamin Pavard to replace Kyle Walker, which is, I think, it's a strong link, by the way. It was Ornstein that released that, to replace Kyle Walker, which Pavard's no way near Walker's level, not from what I've seen, not pace-wise, that's for sure. And there's still a chance they lose a few in Bernardo Silva and possibly even Riyad Mahrez as well. So there's not, it's not no transition for them either. They've already lost Gundogan. So that's interesting. Obviously, I expect they'll go big. I'm pretty sure if Pep Guardiola's letting these players go, he knows full well why he's letting them go. He's not, I'm not buying into any of that. So I'm sure they're going to get that 100 million centre back and a few others, but they've not yet. So at the moment, they've got, Kovacic in and a couple leaving, like Gundogan and possibly Kyle Walker. But Liverpool are ones to watch, I would say. Liverpool ones to watch. They look like they are getting a lot of money from Saudi Arabia for Fabinho. The Jordan Henderson stuff is making me laugh a little bit. Not laugh, but they've got a real dilemma there, haven't they, with Jordan Henderson? Have you read it? Because he's been offered something ludicrous, like 500 to 700 grand a week, to go to Saudi Arabia. But obviously, he's been like a really big, speaker and proponent of the LGBTQ community in and around Liverpool, and we all remember, around the time of the World Cup, was it, and things like that, and so it's really, that's a really, I'm just watching from afar with that one. Well, there's a Liverpool fan, so there's very interesting.
There's a big thing there, Jack, where it's like if he's 700 grand a week, yeah. I don't begrudge anybody that wants 700 grand a week. I'm not going to knock you.
Just for 1 week.
Well, exactly. If he's going out there, and again, I'm respectful of everybody's customs all over the world, how they are, how they view, I'm trying not to get political on a football podcast, but you've put me down this road.
Sorry. I just brought it up. Right. I didn't want to go down too much.
If he's going out there because he's like, I'm going to try and champion and show what I've done in the Premier League in terms of helping the LGBTQ community and everything else like that. But I'm going to do that in Saudi Arabia. Then I've got to, I've got to respect it. But I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening at all. And it just goes back to everybody cares about it, but then there's a price, there's a price where okay. Oh yeah, I've got morals and standards. 700 grand a week. Well, okay then. Do you know what I mean?
I don't think he goes, to be honest. I'm going to put them up, but simply because it's not one of the big money clubs that are actually offering it. It's the club that Steven Gerrard is manager of that's offering it.
The guys that own Newcastle own majority of all the clubs in the league, don't they? So it's like the PIF own all of because they're like, we're trying to make the league more appealing. So everyone's all of them out there have just got silly money to do what they need to do to try and raise the level of the league because, they've just said that they're coming for the Prem. Like they want to be on level as a destination for people to go to. I mean, the fact that at first it was mainly the older type players, but seeing the Neveses and all that of this world land there, you're like, hang on a sec. Okay, if they're starting to track the younger ones.
He's one of the only main ones, though. Or Jota, but he wasn't a big player, was he, from Selby? Neves is the one sort of outlier at this point, isn't he? Otherwise, it's been all players over the age of 30, basically, I think. So I'm not that... I mean, it's big. It's definitely big what they're doing. We've not seen anything like it before. But I mean, we have, but not in this such short time frame. But with Henderson, the reason I think it might not happen is just because Liverpool have asked for a 20 million fee, and even for Saudi Arabia for a 33-year-old, that would be interesting. But they might, like you said, they paid everything else. Why wouldn't they? The Fabinho one I could definitely see happening. Which the reason I brought it up was it allows Liverpool to renew their squad probably more than they thought they might be able to, and that made some significant moves in the market. And I expect Liverpool to be right up there, to be honest, especially as they don't have Champions League next year either. So I don't think Europa League necessarily as easy as they think, but they can rotate more in that, So I expect they could be well. And United are doing bits of business, but again, I don't rate Ten Hag's talent ID anywhere near Klopp's or Arteta's, to be honest. I don't think he's got... I mean, he's signed about half his players have been signed by the players he worked with at Ajax. So... he looked around the whole world at his new club and he's gone back to the club that he went to and signed for like 90 million, Anthony, and people like that. Nah, not buying your talent ID with that one.
Onana helps him, sadly, begrudgingly. He's a brilliant goalkeeper.
Well, we wanted him a couple of years ago, didn't we? Me and you.
He's a really good goalkeeper, mate. Really, really good.
Yeah. So he's going to help them with their ability to play out the back and stuff like that. They still need a striker, which I'm sure.
Oh, if they've got Harry the fridge in front of him, you can, you can have Buffon in his prime. You got Clans in front.
Good old Harry. He's digging his heels in. He knows he's not going to get paid more than a tenth of what he's getting paid at Man United anywhere else, and he's going, nah, I love the club. I'm going to get back into this team. He knows he's not playing, but. Keep him there for a few more years, please. Thank you very much. Yes. I want the Nicolas Pepe effect over there, but at centre back. But boys, it's been fun. We'll be back. I mean, we've got a game on Wednesday, so there'll be that against MLS All Stars, is it? And then we might.
Yeah, lovely 3 a.m. kickoff. I should have known. I know you guys will get up and everything.
This is when I get paid back. See, because these are on my time for once for a few weeks. So I got to sit there, in the evening, nice cup of tea, and I'll put TV on and watch the football. So that'll be good. This is the only one that is not part of the Arsenal Pass online, the MLS All Stars. It's on Apple TV. This game. So if you're trying to catch it, I don't know if that's the same over in England, but over here,
it is. Yeah.
The same thing.
They put it all on.
Is it really? Is that okay?
Just this
they put
one
it all
game.
They put it all on Instagram because the MLS paid. Well, I think Apple, paid to give the MLS the rights on Apple TV, and they paid an extortionate amount of money to have those rights.
Yeah, I think James.
So
yeah.
And it's potentially Messi's. I don't think he's made his debut in the league for Inter Miami yet. So this will be his first sort of, game.
Hold on, he'll be playing in that, will he?
I believe Messi will be picked in the All-Star game. Yeah.
Wow. I saw him walking around Florida supermarket the other day.
Yeah, mate, man, that boxes of Lucky Charms he bought. I'm like,
I know. I went, mate. I tell you, this is the perfect place to retire. I tell you.
Well, yeah, I'm like,
gold medalist in cereal.
You're definitely coming up to 36 and finishing it, and I'm like, look at all that sugar, mate. He's loving
all the
life.
stuff you thought was banned. It's on your shelves over here in supermarkets. That's what it is. Honestly, it's like.
Yeah,
I
was just grateful we didn't have an assault rifle in there, Jack. That's all.
I'm not going down a political route like you said. I've already spoke about one thing, but boys, it's been fun. We'll be back for the post All-Star stuff and obviously sort of talk about the US tour. Rice is imminently waiting to be announced. Already touched on Jurrien Timber and obviously Kai Havertz, but pretty much outdone the Rice stuff. We talked about his strengths, his possible weaknesses, where he might play, all that kind of stuff. Now we just want to see, is it first interview in an Arsenal shirt and see him out and about the place. I'm sure they're going to link it to Jurrien Timber as one, like they did with Nelson and Saliba. Let's see what the media team come up with. It should be a big one, shouldn't it? We should be one of the biggest, because it's the biggest price-wise signing that we've ever made.
It's been a fortnight, Jack. I'm expecting bloody Avengers Endgame. I want to film. I don't want an announcement.
I think
2 weeks.
Vanilla Ice.
Yeah.
And they're doing a little bit of a rap.
This has got to be a Scorsese or someone who's made this announcement video in it. 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm expecting some good stuff. Don't let us down, Arsenal media. You've let us wait long enough, so don't let us down. I want everyone in on it. Ian Wright in the background. You chuck everyone in on it. But Neil, James, it's been great. Sorry to keep you too long. We're on @PurelyArsenalFP on Twitter. You can go to our YouTube account, Purely Arsenal. James, you just posted a new video with yours. You want to mention what your...
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it took me ages to think of the name of it. It's just James Johnstone Football. So, yeah.
Yep, James Johnstone, JJ Football on YouTube. Subscribe there. You do not just Arsenal, but you do an overall sort of, Premier League stuff.
Yeah, I do a very, very condensed version of Match of the Day. It's Match of the Day, but with more hair and talking rubbish.
Yeah. He doesn't mention Spurs much, unless it's the laugh. But, yeah, exactly. We didn't mention them either on the transfer window, but we'll talk more about the other clubs as they start to...
We don't care about them, Jack.
Yeah, we're winning the quad, like Neil said, winning the quad. But we'll be back next week, hopefully, after our next pre-season game, and maybe one or two more stuff happening in the transfer market. Up the Arsenal boys, getting close to that first game of the season. Come on.